Thanksgiving, not only about family, food, and football, also marks the beginning of the holiday shopping season traditionally. This year, the supply chain bottleneck presenting challenges for consumers and retailers alike. With more on what we can expect online and in-store and a whole lot more, pleased to be joined by a panel of insiders this week. The director for the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University, Mike Hicks. Also the president of Beck Communications Group, Lara Beck, and the managing director at Vox Global, Mike Marker. And welcome one and all to the Insiders. We're glad to have you back, and we're doing the Insiders again on the show. And let's start out, and I'll kind of go to each and every one of you. Mike Hicks at Ball State, I'll start with you. Just your general impressions as we head into the holiday shopping season, but just end of the year, getting ready to head into 2022, how you feel the Indiana economy is doing. You know, there's a sense that things are getting back to some sense of normalcy. What's your view?
I think that's about right. We've recovered as well as the rest of the country through this pandemic. There's been a big burst of household spending where the consumption patterns over the past year have been pretty low. Now we're spending it. Usually between this Friday and Christmas Eve, you see about a quarter of all retail spending going on. I think it's going to be a frenzied period of buying and one generally good for the overall economy. We're definitely in a recovery, a robust recovery.
Yeah, Lara, Beck, what's your take? What are you seeing out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm definitely seeing that it is definitely picking up. I think we're also seeing, too, people do have more money because they didn't spend it as much last year. You've got the stimulus, you've got the American Rescue Plan money coming in. So people do have some more money in their pocketbooks, and I think that's one of the reasons that's driving some of this. I think probably I'm watching COVID more, especially as we look ahead to the economy and what that impact is going to be, particularly as we're in these colder winter months, because we still aren't at that sort of mass immunity point yet.
Yeah, Mike Marker, what's your take? You know, we look around and we see full college football stadiums and basketball arenas and, people getting out. Psychologically, at least, it seems as though things are getting back to normal. You think that translates into the economy?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I think people have more money in their pockets. And they're in a position where they want to spend. I think there's also a fair amount of uncertainty as well. Consumer confidence is a bit challenged, and we're going to get into midterms coming up, which will be its own thing, and it'll create some more uncertainty in different levels in terms of what policymakers might do or not do going forward. But I think we're well positioned overall coming into the new year.
Yeah, Mike, Marker, your thoughts on the whole supply chain chaos that we've seen around perhaps getting a little bit better? I don't know, no short-term fixes, I guess, for it, but any thoughts on how that's going to affect the shopping season and the holiday spending here in Indiana?
I have a little different take on it related to supply chain, is that we're spending an awful lot on goods buying out of market and then saying, what can we get shipped to us when we have a whole lot of opportunities to buy right here in our backyard? So I think there's an easy fix on that and that we ought to look at. And then I also think there's bigger supply chain issues that we ought to be talking about, which is our supply of educators that we have. Classrooms are closing down around the state of Indiana because we don't have enough teachers or administrators to fill classrooms, and those are the supply chain things that I think are important for us to look at in the year ahead as well. Yeah,
and Laura, I know you mentioned off camera, you think this is a real opportunity to kind of piggyback on what Mike said, to really support those local neighborhood, if you will, retailers.
Yeah. I do. I absolutely do. I mean, I am personally very committed to shopping local. I do it as much as I possibly can. And you end up having a relationship with the people who run these businesses. And all over the state of Indiana, we have some amazing local small businesses that are doing great things every day. They're reinvesting in their communities. So even if you live in Indianapolis or you live in a more rural community, you can find, as Mike said, right in your backyard. So this really is an opportunity for us to look beyond what we typically do and what we're accustomed to doing, and really reinvesting in our communities.
Yeah, Mike Hicks, from an economist standpoint, your take on the supply chain challenges, and are there any things that can be done? I've heard people talk about easing some of the regulations with truck drivers and the age of truck drivers and getting them more of those in the system. Anything that can be done in your view to kind of alleviate some of these bottlenecks?
Well, I think Mike and Lara have largely hit the point here. This is a demand-driven problem primarily. We're buying a lot of goods after having not spent a lot of money last year, and that makes it very difficult for producers to get everything in. So there are things we can do: buy more services, go to a local movie, go to do something locally. I do think that there's an awful strong argument for mitigating some of the regulatory constraints, the Jones Act and automation at ports, and maybe loosens up rules on truck drivers. But those would be good ideas, even if we weren't in a challenging delivery standpoint. So yeah, I think we ought to do those things, but there's nothing that's going to fix this except patience and the free market activities that the producers are doing right now. And I think we're kind of at the peak of this problem. I think but certainly after Christmas, I think it'll be largely solved.
Yeah, Mike Hicks, I'll start with you, like all of your takes on the outlook for the future of work in the office versus remote. Mike Hicks, how do you see that playing out? You've been, a few months ago, people say, hey, it's going to be all remote. And now we're saying, hey, it's going to be maybe a mix. What are you seeing?
Right. I mean, there are a number of studies out there, like the McKinsey one that says about 20 to 30% of hours worked are going to be remote. But the most common model of that is hybrid, with 1 or 2 days at work each week. And so there are a number of jobs out there that can be done, virtually fully remote. It doesn't matter where I sit with my computer, but the human interaction is really valuable. There's a reason we have cities. There's a reason we have big companies that people interact with, and we're not doing home production like we did 400 years ago. And so that domain is really hard to fix with technology. So I think there's going to be a continued interest for people to be at work for some point of their lives. Still, if you only have to go to work 1 day a week, that changes where you can live. And it makes a lot of places in Indiana very attractive that maybe weren't on the radar of young professionals. Yeah,
interesting point. Mike Marker, your take on what we're going to be doing in or out of the office?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. Certainly plenty of jobs that can be remote only or fully remote. I do think that from a culture perspective and from a talent attraction and retention perspective, it's the wild, wild west, right? And we're not going to know more about this until we've experimented with it. McKinsey's saying 1 to 2 days a week in the office. If you're asking me, I'd say 2 to 3 days a week is going to be better for a culture, but you're going to have to find that right balance to make sure you attract and retain the top talent and meet the needs that they have. Because employees, a lot of reports out there about employees being more in the driver's seat. And so a lot of companies are going to have to tune into the needs of their top talent to make sure they can retain.
Lara, I'll give you the final word on this. Where do you see the future of work?
Well, I agree with both Michael and Mike. I do think we're going to see a blend of it. But I do think there are some businesses and some, even local governments, for example, where you can't have people do remote work. I mean, there are just some jobs that you have to have people working. So from a talent perspective, what I think is going to be interesting is once we get kids back in schools, we get them vaccinated, they're back in schools, they're not e-learning. You may see a lot of folks who do want to continue to work at home because it does give them flexibility, and they're not having to both teach their children and work at the same time. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Will indeed be interesting, to be sure. Lara Beck, Mike Hicks, and Mike Marker, thanks one and all for being on The Insiders. Happy Thanksgiving as well.
Happy Thanksgiving.